would be ideal. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Music Meltdown. I say that like once every 3 months now, so that's cool. We're doing a bit of an album review here with Vanessa. This is of a, from what I'm being told now, incredibly random record to choose to do like a retrospective, I guess, on or whatever. It is Let Go by the band Not a Surf. Not a Surf, as I learned 20 minutes ago, is most well known for their 96 hit, what was it called again? Popular?
Popular.
Yes, which I am still unsure if I've even heard, so this makes it even more random. But we're reviewing their O2 record, Let Go. This is going to be for a series thing that I might do, might not do, but we'll get to that if I do it. So, yes, what was your prior experience with this release, if I may ask?
Well, I've listened to it before. I've liked Not a Surf albums in the past, like their 1998 album, The Proximity Effect, made my top 25 of that year. And so I went and listened to this one. And Lucky, I think, came out in 2008. Ooh. Yeah, okay, good. That I've also heard that one and their newest release, of course. So I know about half their catalog, I'd say. And I don't know what made me originally listen to this particular one earlier this year, but I have. I did notice when I looked at the Wikipedia page that there are a lot of songs from this that have been used in movies and stuff. So that could maybe make this one a little more prominent than some of their others.
Possibly. I knew a mean zero going into this. It basically popped up because I was going to do a series where I was like doing the Spotify weekly and I was going to like review those records. I guess I forgot what weekly meant and I didn't realize how much of a commitment that was going to be. So it might happen, it might not, who knows? And this record showed up in that. I heard a song, I thought, wow, this is pretty fucking good. And I remember knowing in the past that Vanessa, of course, was a fan of this band, so I figure, why not? Let's do this. So that's how we've made it here into this incredibly random album review. So
What you could do with that idea is maybe pick your favorites and do a retrospective on those albums.
I could. However, that would require me to listen to 30 albums each week because
Oh,
that's
I
how
meant
it
the
goes.
songs, just
Oh,
the
the
favorite
songs.
song.
Okay. That would make more
Yeah,
sense. No, I'm gonna listen
yeah.
to 30 albums every week of them all.
Well,
Well, it wouldn't be that far off from what I already do,
no.
so oh well, we'll see. With that being said though, how did you feel about Let Go by Not a Surf? Considering
Well,
you're the
sorry, go ahead.
it's fine.
Yeah. I think it's a very good album. It's not my favorite album of theirs that I've heard. I actually would say that Lucky is. But I'd say probably of the ones I've heard, it's my second favorite. And I think it's a grower. I think that I went back to it several times to do this review. So some of it really grew on me. There were some immediate standouts the first time I heard it that I've liked and listened to all along, but I found some new favorites coming back to it. So that is always a good sign. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of structure we're going to follow here. I've got a bit of something prepared, so I don't know how we're going to do this.
I oh, how what do you think of the songs? I guess I don't know. Are they good songs?
Overall, yes, I think that they have a nice range and variety of songs on the album, as well as some that are like immediately more catchy, and some that are more slow burns, that have a satisfying payoff the more you listen to the album. And I think there's some interesting lyrics as well. A song like Fruit Fly takes kind of a unique approach, and it may not work for everyone, but I think they make it work. So overall, I think that the songwriting is good. The worst songs, I would say, relatively speaking, more just leave me wanting more than they are really bad songs. So that's
I
not so bad.
I'd agree with those sentiments generally as somebody who really didn't know anything about this band going into them. I think that they have a lot of really interesting twists and styles. Like at their core, they're very clearly like alt rock, indie rock, sort of that sphere. And at their worst, they're just a bit generic in that, I would say, but not overtly bad if you like the style and sound. I think
Mhm.
it's a very good mix of like tempos. There's some very like high energy, really like hard rockers on here, but also some very, softer, more gentle touches. I think it lends to a really interesting listening experience. What I will say is I like the bookends a lot more. I think in the middle there's a bit of a lull, which you'll see later on in my track list and my track ranking. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I think it starts very strong. I think it ends really strong. I think from tracks, I want to say around 6 to 10. I wasn't quite as sold, but I still do like those songs plenty. So,
Interesting. I think our ranking might be a little different, but
oh
we'll see.
boy, what a surprise.
Yeah.
So yes. I don't know, was there any like sort of standout things, sort of like personnel wise, vocally or anything? Because I do have a note about the vocals that felt weird. I don't know if you'll see it, but for whatever reason, at certain points, Matthew Caw's vocals, I don't know if it's like the delivery or just his overall voice. I got like a very weird hint of like Rufus Wainwright on some of the softer songs. I think it's more so in just sort of
Yeah.
how he enunciates or sort of phrases things, but that's sort of something I had picked up on.
That didn't stand out to me, but I'm not as well versed in Rufus's catalog as you are, so that could be why. But I can see that from what I know. What really stood out for me from Matthew Caw is his guitar work. I really liked his guitar work throughout the album, and that's one of the things I found myself really drawn to, like the tones and the moods that they evoke, especially on songs like La Forza, um, which the song itself is not my favorite, but I do actually like the guitar playing, and that was a highlight for me on the song. And overall, I think as a band, they all serve the songs well in their way. I think that Ira Elliott's drums do exactly what the songs need. They're powerful on the more upbeat songs, but sometimes he can show a lot of restraint on the slower songs, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the restraint is boring. It's just more what suits the song best. Like I really like what he does in the second half of Blonde on Blonde, for instance. I really think that he really enhances the end part of that song. And as well, Daniel Lorca, he's no slouch on the bass either. He has some really cool bass work on High Speed Soul, especially. And I think that really drives the song ahead. So I think they all work together to bring everything that they need to bring to the songs to make everything work. So I would say they all had some standout moments, and nothing that really stood out as a, a downbeat moment or whatever. So
Makes sense. Seems we're relatively seeing eye to eye, except for how these tracks are going to play out. So that's going to be interesting to see whenever we
yeah,
get there. But well, do we have anything to say else past that? Really, it kind of seems we're at a point where this is just like a really good album, I think, for both of us, but not like anything that we're like going crazy for, if that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a 4 star album.
I'm in
It's a
a
strong
similar
four
boat.
star album, but
I, I'd agree
not an all time favorite.
for sure. Maybe one of their other albums will be if we ever do something more about this band.
Hmm.
Time will
Well,
tell us.
lucky I already have higher, so
Nice, nice.
that's just all right off the bat from what I know.
For sure. Do we just want to get into sort of a track ranking if we did that?
Sure,
Cool, cool. Do you want to start out or would you like me to?
I can start. So we're just gonna
That
go
works.
worst to best. Is that how we're doing it?
That works. That makes sense.
Okay, so Neither Heaven Nor Space is my least favorite song. I think it's a pretty song, but it lacks a little punch to elevate it further. And I just always, every time it comes on, I'm just like, I my mind kind of wanders a little bit, and I'm always like, it's the same song. It's definitely the bottom. And
Oh, yeah.
it's interesting to note that it was not on the original European version of the album. So makes me curious to see what the song that was omitted sounds like. I did not actually go and listen to that, the one that was omitted from the US version, which I guess we should have said that's what we were going from.
Yeah. Well,
There's two slightly different versions of the album.
yes. I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of divergence. It seemed like a song I would imagine you liked more than me. And based on what you had said earlier, I expect this part of the record to have landed a lot better for you. My personal least favorite on the record was High Speed Soul, which I thought was kind of just starting out a bit of like it was just sort of a bit generic indie rock for me. It was still very good, very solid, but I just think it sort of lacked something to really make it stand out, of course, among the track listing, which as you'll see, as you'll see through my ranking, I was very much drawn to the first five tracks, and that's where things start to slow down a bit for me. So just sort of where it fell,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think any of these are bad songs. Even
for
the
sure.
ones at the bottom here. It's just
Yeah,
less good, I guess.
for
So
sure.
the number 11 for me is La Pour Ça. I find the guitar mood and tone very pretty, and that's the highlight of the song, as I said before. But I don't really feel like too much else is happening with the song itself, and it's again another instance where it's leaving me wanting more. So yeah,
Have
that's really the worst thing I can say about most of these.
For sure. I have similar sentiments, just I have a song next up that I liked a little bit less. That is The Way You Wear Your Head, which I thought was good, but as we're kind of running into, I don't think that there's a lot to really say about it. I think it's just a
Hmm.
very solid song. It works for what it is, but it falls in that bit of the track listing where, for me at least, I like Killian's Red a lot. That's the track that just is just before it, and I think that this one is a bit of
Hmm.
a letdown following that, and it just sort of is what it is. It's good. It's not exemplary though.
All right. Well, I guess I will have one that's a divergence from what your opinion, because just from what you said. Number 10 is Blizzard of 77 for me. It's short and a bit fragmentary. I think it works very well to open the album, but it's less satisfying on its own. Like if you heard that by itself outside the album, I don't know how much it would really do for you. So that again, with that whole part, leaves you wanting more kind of thing. But I do think it's very effective to lead into the album, and the way it leads into the next song is also works really well. So,
I agree to that, but once again, it just lands a bit higher for me. Next up, I have La Persa. I believe that's how I said that. Cool.
mm,
Pretty similar sentiments. Just it's pretty, it's very nice. It doesn't stand out though, which is really the main issue
yeah,
with a lot of these songs near the bottom. They're good, they
yeah,
aren't great. So there you
yeah.
go.
Number 9 is Fruit Fly. I think it has some interesting lyrics, and I like how it builds up. But I mean, it's not one that necessarily leaves me wanting more. It just this is where it fell when I ordered everything else. So that's really about it. That's kind
Very,
of where the middle sort of ends up. There's the favorites, there's the obvious bottom, and then everything else just kind of falls.
very, very interesting. I'm willing to hedge our bets. That's going to be the biggest disagreement thus far. So very
Yeah.
interesting. Next up for me, I had Neither Heaven Nor Space, which, as I'm kind of just alluding to, it's just sort of this middle section of the record that left me a bit let down. I was leaning towards 4.5 in the first half, ended up at 4 because of just this little lull for me. It's once
Hmm.
again pretty good. It's not great. So
Yeah.
it's just sort of all I have to say about these songs,
Yeah, and
unfortunately.
well, it's kind of hard to come up with much to say about that one.
Oh,
That's
for
why
sure.
it's my bottom.
Yeah.
um, so number 8 is Treading Water. I think it's some pretty cool pace shifting. I do like the faster, more rocking parts the best, and that's about it.
I see as this goes on, this was a very good idea to do for this record of all albums. So next up for me, I have the opener, Blizzard of 77, and you're pretty well correct. I think it's a very nice song. I would like it if I heard it outside of the record, but it very much is like it's clearly the shortest one on here. I believe it's a minute shorter than even the next shortest song. And
Yeah.
it's just good for what it is, but it I wouldn't say leaves you wanting more because it leads into the next track very nicely, but it's just hard to put it that much higher whenever there isn't as much substance to it compared to the next couple. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty much. Next, I have Paper Boats. I think that's a good way to close the album out. It's another strong verse chorus contrast, which they seem to be very good at. And it's got a
Yeah.
perfect melancholy tone. I just like a few of the other songs better. But I do think it's a great closer and it ends things on a high note for sure, especially after a few bit of lull songs there.
That's fair. And kind of funnily, how this ended up, my next track is the next track in the track listing, being Happy Kid, which I think is really good. It has a great energy to it, really good sort of bounce and whatnot. It plays after Blizzard of 77 very well. I just think that the songs that directly followed it sort of either do something differently that I like a lot better or build off this sound in an even better way. And I just really like those closing tracks, which we'll get to. So
Yeah,
it's kind of how I feel there. So
gotcha. The next song I don't have much written, which is kind of funny, but Inside Your Love is my
I'm
next
there too.
on the list. I just think it has a really pretty chorus. It's one that's often used in movies, and it was one of their most played songs on Tidal for me anyway. I don't know about Spotify, which made me curious, and that's why I looked into it because I was like, why that song of all songs? I mean, it's a nice song, it's a good song, but so that's why. But yeah, it's a like I said, nice song, pretty chorus.
Ditto. It's their number two on Spotify, by the way. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just really good. There's
Yeah.
not much deeper to it. So
No, not really.
that
So
was that.
next, oh, go
No,
ahead.
you're good. I was just saying it was to clarify my next one.
Yeah.
So
High Speed Soul is my next favorite. I like the contrast of the more rocking verses and the sort of lighter chorus. And it's one that I found myself liking more and more as I listened to the album. And like I said, I like the bass work that propels it. And yeah, I just think it's a good rocker, solid song.
I guess kind of interesting because I liked that a good bit my first go around, but as I listened to it again, it could be because I listened to it twice in one day. I just found it a bit.
Right.
I maybe was just growing tired at that point, and that could be why that part of the record sort of
Yeah.
fell for me. But I don't know. It just sort of is what it is. Next up
Yeah.
for me, I have Killian's Red, which kind of a weird thing, very random thing I'm going to point out. I really like how the word Killian plays with his melodic phrasing of it. I just how the word sounds in the song. I
Mm,
think it's a cool word.
yeah.
Good for all the Killians out there. But no, past that, I just think it's a really well-made song. I
Mm,
believe the longest on here. I think it's got a really good build and it sort of just grows as it goes along. And
yeah.
I just like how it sounds. I like how the title sounds in the song. So hence why it's higher. So there's
Yeah.
Killian Thread.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not there yet, but number four is The Way You Wear Your Head. And I like the punchy sound of it. So I guess I like some of those more punchy, like upbeat songs more than you do. I realize they're not reinventing the wheel. They're just
Yeah,
solid, enjoyable, I guess, sort of power pop inspired indie rock sound for the modern, or I guess not that modern. It's 22 years ago, but the 2000s era. So
for sure. That seems kind of apt in sort of most of our musical tastes though. So I guess it makes sense how this falls along.
yeah.
Next up for me, I had Paper Boots. I've ran out of things to say about these songs. I just think that they're all around a very similar quality at this point of being very strong, having good builds, having sort of, they're very good for the moods that they're setting. It's just at little points, they're really reinventing anything across this record, which is really the biggest flaw. And if that's your biggest flaw, I mean, you're doing a decent job. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that also depends on how much weight you put on that for listening to something. I mean,
for
some
sure.
people really rank that as something that's very, very important to them to always be innovating and hearing things, but not everything can do that. So I
Mhm.
think for what this is, I don't even really think they're trying to. So I think
Not really.
they do a good job of what they're trying to do.
And I mean,
So next
even
up,
along, oh, sorry,
okay. No,
even
go ahead.
along that similar wavelength, you can do new things and it be bad. I feel like
Mm,
sometimes people don't recognize that. Like,
yes,
it's very
absolutely.
easy to do something new and it just kind of sucks. There's a reason why some things aren't done. Not
Yeah.
everything needs to be like reinventing the wheel. If it's very well
No.
done at what it is, then who cares if they're doing something new? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's all about how you feel about it at the end of the day.
for sure.
So next up, I have Killian's Red. The guitar playing is my favorite part of this one initially, but then the more I listened to it, the more it grew on me. And I love the way that it builds from the verses to the pre-chorus to when the chorus hits. It's just so satisfying when you get there. Like it just has this sort of effective like journey to it as a song, which I really appreciated about it more the more I listened to it. Actually, I did this ranking originally a few listens before, and then I went back a couple times and then I've adapted it. And this was actually a bit lower for me originally, but as time went on, it's come up higher and higher. So it's one of those slow burn songs that I alluded to at the beginning for sure. And definitely one of the biggest growers on the album.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next up for me, one you already talked about, which did kind of catch me by surprise. I have Treading Water, which I think is really when the record starts to rejuvenate itself. I think for me, obviously you've liked some of the ones that came just before this a bit more than me, so this is kind of
Hmm.
where the record sort of boosted back up. I think it's just got a really great energy after a couple sort of more somber, softer songs. It really gets you back engaged, I feel like. I love the way that sort of the chorus is, of course, a bit more, not quite as loud. It's a lot more gentle and very nice.
Hmm.
I just think it's one of their best songs off this record that builds upon like the dynamics. It's very good in that regard. That was an awful review. I knew what I was trying to say. Good words didn't come out. So that's kind of where we're at. So number three, Treading Water. It's very good.
You're treading water as you review it.
I'm drowning.
Nah, no, you're not.
It's fine.
So my second, you've already talked about, Happy Kid. I think it's very catchy and memorable. It's a good choice as the second track to really kick the album off. Plays very well with Blizzard of 77. And on its own, though, it's still a great punchy song. Like it's not something that only exists within the album. You can listen to it on its own and it's one that gets stuck in your head. So that's always a big
For
thing
sure.
for me for something like this to judge whether or not it's a favorite or not. So
For sure.
although I guess bad songs also get stuck in your head. So
Yeah.
that's it's a flawed approach, but
If it gets stuck in your head and you don't hate it, then you're good.
yeah.
So probably our biggest disagreement amongst all of these lists, we're going to share the same number one, so that's good. But
Mm,
my number two is Fruit Fly. I was shocked to hear this back at nine, but it seems like most of these songs are of a similar level of quality to you, so
yeah.
it's not really that big a deal. I just thought this one was really strong. I like the analogy that he's saying with the fruit fly. Do I
Mm,
remember the analogy that well? No, but do I remember that I liked it? Yes, and that's all that I need. I have the parallel in my head, and that's good enough. And I just think
yeah.
of this for me in regards to like they're more punchy, they're more just like a, sort of more fun songs. Well, I doubt that this is really that fun, but I think it's just a
Yeah.
very well made song. I think it's got a great punch to it. I think that it's one of the catchier on the record. I really enjoyed it. So,
Yeah.
as you can tell, I'm running out of things to say. I
Well,
should have listened
it's
to
a
the song.
really good one, yeah.
Oh,
I
for sure.
and I like and I think lyrically it's one of the more interesting ones too, for
I
sure.
would agree.
Yeah.
And number
So
one that we
the
both have.
number one is Blonde on Blonde. That's easy. It's been my favorite since the first time I heard the album, so it wasn't really too difficult to arrive to this conclusion.
Yeah,
Um, I love the chorus. I love the melancholy tone. I love the way it ties everything together, and it's just a beautiful song. Like it just the obvious standout, I guess, because we both have
yeah.
it at number one.
If
So
you take one thing away from this, listen to Blonde on Blonde. You can listen to this
yeah,
song, you can listen to the Dylan record, take your pick. Either or, you're winning in this regard, so it doesn't
yeah,
really matter that much. But yeah, as you're saying, it's a clear, obvious standout. I think it's probably the best written of any of the songs here. It has a great movement throughout it. It's one of the more melancholic across here, and it ends up being
mm,
very beautiful in that regard. Just a really good song. Good,
yeah,
good, good for Dylan, good for Not a Surf. So there you go,
yeah. Just make a whole afternoon of it.
for sure. Have that. Listen to the Dylan record and then listen to the Not a Surf song. Just have a
Yeah,
whole evening of Blonde on Blonde.
there you go.
Yeah. So this was an album review, I guess.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah, it's a really good album. Like we've said, there's some immediate standouts, but there are also some growers. And at the worst, there's a few songs that you're left wanting more from, but they all have their good points and
absolutely.
no bad songs. Yeah.
Yeah. This
It's
is,
it's really like a quintessential four-star album, I think.
oh
Like
yeah.
it's got all the qualities that, make a four-star album. So
It's good enough to want to return to it, but not good enough to where you're gonna like go out of your way to like heavily recommend this to people. It's just like
no,
it's a very strong record, but it's nothing
yeah.
that's gonna blow your mind.
No, but
So
it is very solid, I guess higher than solid. So like
absolutely.
I would put it higher than the proximity effect, which I also have at four stars. That was in my top 25 of 1998. So I'd say I like this one a little bit better.
I have no comparison point because I heard this album for the first time at 7 a.m. So there we
Oh,
go.
Okay. I didn't realize that you had heard it before today.
No, that's I may
Okay.
or may not have been procrastinating a little bit and just sort of forgot that this was planned. So I am so good at planning for this. Eventually, there'll be another video on this channel, probably. There you go. I hope that you enjoyed this review, kinda. I hope that you listened to the record and probably come to the same conclusion that we did. So, any closing remarks here? Any plugs you want to make, even though you're more popular than me now? So,
Listen to more Nada Surf. They are more than just the song Popular, which is a terrible representation of their catalog. Not
they
because it's a terrible song, it just does not sound like anything else, really.
they deserve to be more popular. That's what we can end this off on.
Yes. For other things than
For,
Popular.
yes, 4 stars. Very good.
Yeah.
Slight, solid recommendation, I guess.
Yeah. Check it out
There you
for
go.
sure.
Alrighty, that was the review. This will come out, I guess. This is such a random review the more and more this goes on. Alrighty, so I hope you all have a good day, I suppose. Goodbye.
Bye.